Welcome to Butterflies of Wisdom, everyone. And today with me I have Erin, and how I heard about Erin's story, and she wrote a book which we'll mainly talk about in the podcast about how to get finances together as a millennial. And how I heard about Erin's story is paychecks and balances interviewed Erin. And so that's how I heard about Erin's story when she first got on a phone with me. I could not figure out how I heard her story, and it finally clicked. And so without further ado, I'm going to let Miss Erin take it away.
Well, thank you so much for having me. So, hi to all your listeners. My name is Erin Lowry, and I am the founder of a site called BrokeMillennial.com, where I talk about how to get your financial life together, specifically for millennials, but also for everyone else. And then I also wrote a book, which came out May 2nd, called Broke Millennial, Stop Scraping By and Get Your Financial Life Together. And I work as a personal finance expert, author, speaker, and one of my favorite things to do is to really go into classrooms or offices and talk to people about their financial lives, as well as having one-on-one meetings, because I'm of the mindset that one of two things is going to happen. Either you control your money or your money controls you. And it's not necessarily about how much you have. It's about being able to get over any psychological barriers you have with money and figuring out how to put yourself in the driver's seat.
Now, my first question is, I am going back to school. And for those of you who don't know, I'm going back to journalism school. And of course, I have two lovely loans, Stafford loans, that I need to pay off as soon as I finish. No one ever said to me, and when this is my second time going back to school for a second degree, no one ever said to me, you can pay off those loans while you're in school. Thank you very much. Everyone says, oh, pay off your loans when you graduate. No, you can pay off your loans in school. So, Erin, how do you feel about that?
If you can pay off even just a little bit of your loans or all of your loans while you're still in school, that is awesome. That's one thing that I actually advocate when I go in to speak to college students is if you have a job right now or maybe you get one during the summer, or you're doing an internship that pays, what have you, if you have a way to start putting money towards your education now, that's a major financial windfall because it offsets both the interest that you're going to have to pay, and if you can graduate either debt-free or as close to debt-free as possible, it sets you up to have a much easier life post-graduation.
I'm going to do that the second time. I'm actually going to start, believe it or not, you guys, paying off my two loans next year when I make my job pivot, because I want to be debt-free with my journalism degree, because I don't want to be one of those kids who wait till the last minute to pay off loans. No, I have money and I have the blessings of my family to help me, and so why not do it now? So I think everyone should do it now if they can.
Yeah, definitely.
Definitely. And so, Erin, what made you write this book, and what made you decide to do what you do?
That's a great question. It's a mix of a few factors, so I'll kind of take you back to start at the beginning, and that's that my parents raised me and my little sister to talk about money at a very early age. So when I was 7 years old, it's the first time I can remember talking about money. And my parents just kind of consistently kept doing that throughout my childhood. They would use these real life examples as ways to instruct us how money worked. And it would also be as simple as if I wanted something. I loved stuffed animals as a kid. And so if I wanted a stuffed animal, then my dad would say, okay, but will you pay 50%? And if I wasn't willing to fork over 50% for this stuffed animal, I wouldn't get it. They didn't just buy and hand stuff to us. And it was also a way that my dad was kind of teaching me to curb impulse purchases and to think through kind of the value of money. So that's where it began in terms of my relationship to money. And what you grow up around is normal. And so I was kind of under this very incorrect assumption that most people had a similar relationship to money. I just assumed that everybody's parents talked to them about it and told them how it worked. Obviously, I get into the real world and noticed quickly that that is not the case.
No.
And
No.
when I live in New York City now, and I moved here right out of college back in 2011. And my first job here did not pay very much, and I only made about $23,000 my first full year in New York City, which, for reference, the poverty line in New York is $19,000. So not a whole lot of money to be living off of. But I still felt in control because I knew how to make it work.
Yeah.
And
That's
so
good.
what I quickly realized is one of my friends who lived here, she wanted to move here to be an actress, very classic story. And I was talking to her one night about the job that she had. And at the time, she was working as an executive assistant to two higher-ups at Viacom. And she really hated her job. And then at that point in our lives, we were 23. I'm 28 now, but we were 23 at the time. And I said, I don't really get it because you don't have student loan debt. You're not married. You don't have kids. You don't have credit card debt. There's nothing that seems to be really holding you back. Like, why aren't you waitressing or nannying or doing what you have to do to make ends meet while you pursue this acting dream? And she said, I don't know. I just really stress out about money. I hope I have enough at the end of the month. And that little sentence was kind of my aha moment when I realized, wow, I'm in this unique position where I didn't have a finance background. I was theater and journalism in college. I'm not a mathematically oriented person by nature. I'm much more of a creative thinker, but money didn't stress me out. And I figured I want to make sure that everyone else feels this way. And part of my mission was that I'm not a finance person. I'm coming from a position that's more similar to a lot of my readers. And so I won't take any sort of excuses of I'm not good with math, I just don't like money. That's, in my opinion, wrong. You can completely be in control, even if you don't have a lot, and I'm here to show you how.
Well, and if you don't mind me asking, what year were you born in?
1989.
1989. Okay, because I think as older millennials, I know we don't have a fear of money. We know how to invest it well. I have 2 certificates of deposits. Do you know I haven't touched those dang things since I got them?
That's great.
And I think that's pretty good. I haven't touched those dang things. Now, I'm very lucky to have a job and to have an employer that supports my disability and supports the creative work I do. But at the same time, most people with disabilities can't hold a job because they're either mentally or physically disabled. So what do you suggest to the physically and mentally disabled who's listening to this podcast? How can we help them to be more money savvy, if you know what I mean?
I do, and you're right, it's a very different scenario. I think part of it is that the government structures, especially in the United States, that are in place, and I will not claim to be an expert, but the little that I do know, it feels to me as if it doesn't set people up for success. In fact, it's almost more beneficial that people don't necessarily hold down a full-time job because the support that they need can get cut. Or that, I've heard of instances where 2 people with disabilities want to get married to each other, but they choose not to. They cohabitate and remain lifetime partners, but they don't get married because their government help and the aid that they need in order to pay for things can get cut. And
exactly.
I think that is
exactly.
That is a
You're
huge issue.
Absolutely right.
And part of go ahead.
I was going to say your knowledge that you do know is full on.
And to me, it's first of all incredibly upsetting that that's the structure that exists, because it doesn't offer an incentive to strike out on your own and to try to earn money, because it could be damaging, which is a major problem. And the other thing that I think the first step, though, is to, one, be very intimately familiar with what all of your options are and what the cause and effect are of certain situations. So the fact that people know, hey, if I actually get married, this could financially hurt me, that's an important thing to know. And so the next step, and this is a much more larger scale issue, but there now needs to be more advocacy for changing these systems, which is so lofty. And I understand that where I'm coming from as an able-bodied person is, not necessarily the best piece of advice, but I think that there needs to be more awareness of the fact that these are the policies in place. I didn't know about that until very recently. I was listening to a different podcast, and they had on a couple who were both disabled, different disabilities, but both disabled, both had to rely on government help in order to have aids. And the podcast was about the two of them and their lives together, and that they had to not get married and because of the financial situation. And that was just mind-blowing to me. But I feel like there's not enough information out there about these scenarios, and there needs to be a better education process.
Well, Anne, I was just going to suggest this, and we can talk about this offline, but seriously, I would like to help you understand, and I would like to be a partner on your website and help you understand from the disabled aspect and money, because I agree with you. I feel like it needs to be advocacy all the way around.
Yeah, definitely. We definitely need to connect offline and see what we can do.
Yeah. And we definitely need to connect offline, because I feel like it needs to be advocacy all the way around. I mean, what the president-elect is doing as of today is slowly killing me, literally, because he's cutting my benefits, and he's cutting thousands and thousands of disability benefits. And it's like, I need as much benefits as many benefits as next person. And so I agree with you. I think even though we're all the millennials, we have an open conversation about money, and we use debit cards a lot more than credit cards, and we pay loans off in a reasonable amount of time. But I also agree that it needs to be advocacy all the way around.
And I think a big part of it is education, especially education of people who don't have any interaction with understanding what the needs are of people with disabilities, the varying spectrum of what financially people may need. And the only thing that I guess I would consider encouraging is that because of technology and because of being able to work remotely and being able to have jobs that aren't in necessarily a traditionally confined space where you have to get up, get transportation, get to an office, stay in an office, come home, I think that can open the door for more people to earn their own money and do so on their own time in the comfort of their own home or space or wherever they choose for that to be. But on the other side, it is very demanding to get to that point. I mean, I just think about myself. I now do work from home, but it took so much time and so much energy and very, very, very long weeks for me to be able to get to this point. And so it's not something I say lightly that like, oh, you can just go out and find a job on the internet. But I think that we might be able to, in the next decade or so, push into jobs where there are more opportunities for people who have different needs.
I definitely agree.
Are you still there?
Sorry about my Apple headphone is. I said and I was going to say and that the technologies and assistive technologies can help the disabled make money and make money wisely too.
Yeah, it can, and I think it'll just be interesting to see the job opportunities that exist in the next 5 to 10 years. Things are changing so quickly, and I think that there will be more opportunity. But on the flip side, it does come back to that advocacy and that education portion where you still do have to make sure that you're not earning so much that you're phasing yourself out of getting the benefits that you might need, because there's that gray zone where, you know, you're not earning enough to cover all of those benefits out of pocket, but you're earning too much to get the benefits. And so just making sure that people are also aware of all of that.
Yeah, that drives me nuts that the disabled can't earn enough, but yet they want to make money. It drives me crazy. It absolutely drives me nuts to think that the disabled can't earn enough to support themselves, but yet they want to make money. So I need to ask you, what is your favorite entrepreneurial moment that you have had?
Ooh, that's a good one. I would say the first time that I got paid a significant amount of money to give a talk, because it all of a sudden made everything that I had put in, and I had spent a decent amount of time doing the grunt work, working for free, all of that, and the first time that I felt valued was just a very vindicating experience, and it also helped teach me what I'm worth moving forward as well.
Well, I can understand that, because talking about money is not only you make a certain amount, it's self-value too.
Yes, absolutely. And I think so many of us tend to undervalue ourselves, or we fail to negotiate. Or the other issue is communication. You need to talk to people, especially people who work in your space, and kind of hear about what they earn, what they charge, how they negotiate in order to make sure that you're being compensated fairly.
Yes, exactly. I just talked to my school yesterday, and I said, well, what do students do when they come out of school? And they go, don't worry about that. Recruiters will come and find you. And even if you're on the line, they will come and find you. So I'm very lucky that a recruiter will potentially come and find me. But at the same time, when you are going into college and going to your junior year, start looking at those job boards and start networking, because as Aaron and I said at the top of the show, you need to pay your student loans off ASAP so they don't sit and collect debt after debt after debt, because it doesn't help your credit score either.
Well, and I would say networking is the key thing that you just mentioned, where you don't want to just rely on cold sending resumes out and cold calling companies or whatever it is that you're doing for applications. You really want to rely on that network that you've built. And I think that part of going to college, one of the most valuable things you get out of college is a network. And on my first 3 jobs, well, one was a big internship, and then 2 jobs that I got out of college back to back were all based on networking. And that is one of the least spoken about and most valuable pieces of going to college.
Yeah. And I think all students should, especially the older students, should be on LinkedIn and should create a digital profile because of the network and because of the work at home opportunity and because of your college experience.
That's a good idea, as well as buy the domain that's associated with your name so you can own that. Whether or not you want to immediately build a website, it's nice to have the option in the future. And depending on the type of work that you're interested in, having a website together, and it's pretty easy and cheap to throw together just a really basic website, then you can also be profiling your information that way. And then if an employer is interested, you can just send them a link to your work, which is very helpful.
Yes, exactly. That's I've had my website for since I was 23, and believe it or not, I've had people come and look at my website and do Google research on me, and unbeknownst to me, they've given me speaking gigs because of my website. And you guys know that I'm the older millennial and I have a resume that gets slowly updated every single year. And I think that it's not all about money, it's about networking, and then it's about money, and then asking for what you're worth, too.
Yes, totally.
If you go into that entry level position and don't ask for what you're worth, you're not going to get the money you deserve, and you're not going to be used for your gifts and talent.
And a lot of people don't realize that you can negotiate on first jobs and even second jobs, and many of us fail to ever negotiate early on in our careers.
Yeah. No, as I was growing up, I have been very blessed with the opportunities I've had despite my disability, but yet I have a good relationship with money, and I think the younger millennials do not. I think the younger millennials do not, and it scares me half to death to see my girlfriend texting 1,000 miles a minute, and she doesn't even know what that paycheck is worth, and she doesn't even have a credit card yet, which I think she wouldn't be hell on wheels. So it scares me to think that the older millennials, like you and I, are doing a better job with money, or so I hope, than the younger millennials.
And I think that just generationally, there are different pain points. I mean, student loans is pretty rampant across the entire generation. Some of the older millennials went deeper into student loan debt than they necessarily meant to because they graduated into the recession and then just went straight to grad school. But interestingly, the younger millennials didn't have the same access to credit cards that we did because of the Card Act of 2009, so it wasn't as easily accessible on college campuses. So there's this interesting chicken or egg situation where some of them are graduating college, they have no credit scores, luckily they don't have credit card debt, but some of them are struggling because they graduate with no credit scores and can't even get an apartment. So it's just interesting, too, what different pain points are across one generation.
Yeah, it is. But with the power of these saving apps like Mint, and Mint is the only one I can think of off the top of my head, you would be amazed at the power of saving just through your iPhone, and you would be amazed what mobile banking can do to save the millennial generation. And yeah,
I'm a big fan of mobile banking, especially just because of the ease of being able to access your information. You're never being kept in the dark.
Yeah, ease and making bank transfers in the mobile app itself is easy to do because we all have our iPhones in our hands. So those of you who are listening, even if you're not millennial, get your mobile banking app, set it up, thank you very much, and then you would be debt free essentially if you pay your credit card on time or close to on time mobilely, because we all have we really sit at computers anymore. We all have iPhones in our hands. Why not use them to help our futures?
Yes, I absolutely agree. And, you know, I think the other thing, too, is just making sure that you're finding ones that work specifically to you. There are so many different strategies when it comes to handling your money, and I think a lot of people give up just because they tried one thing and it didn't work out well. And so it's really important just to find the method that works best for you, both mentally and emotionally, and then practically as well.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Now, Ann, I know you're not a big podcast fan, or maybe you are. What is your favorite podcast that you can recommend to all my listeners?
Ooh, I love podcasts. It kind of depends on what you're interested in. But if you want just a really good version of storytelling when it comes to money, I think that Planet Money, which is from NPR, is hard to beat because they do a very good job of making economics both interesting and relatable, and they talk about all sorts of different things. I really like Death, Sex, and Money because they talk about a bunch of different issues. It's not just money, but it's kind of the intersection of all of these things that we consider taboo in our society. And another podcast called Listen, Money Matters, as well as Paychecks and Balances, which you mentioned earlier in this episode. So there are just so many to pick from, especially when it comes to money.
And another one that's kind of related to money is Brown Ambition, which I believe it's run by two freelance money analysis. Brown Ambition. Tiffany, God, and I forget the co-host name at this point, but
Tiffany
Brown
and Mandy
Ambition.
Woodruff.
Tiffany and Mandy Woodruff, thank you. And that's it. And Brown Ambition is one of those, they talk about money, but they talk about life too. And Paychecks and Balances is kind of leaning towards the money side of it, but they don't necessarily talk about life except in career. But I would say Paychecks and Balances and Brown Ambition, or Brown Ambition, is one of or two of my favorite money related podcasts. So you guys, I do like money podcasts, but didn't think I did. You guys didn't think I did. And so what is your best advice to say to any millennial, disabled or not, to start them on the path to being money savvy?
The first thing I always tell people that they need to do is know their cash flow. And honestly, it's just the sexier way to say a budget. But what I mean by knowing your cash flow is knowing exactly how much money is coming in every month and exactly how much money is going out and what the difference is. Because without being intimately familiar with those numbers, it's really hard to make any sort of next part of your strategy when it comes to getting your financial life together.
Yeah, and unfortunately, I need to know my cash flow personally a little bit more, because unfortunately, in the job I am in, the paycheck kind of stops in the summer because I'm a teacher and we don't get paid necessarily in the summer. So
Yep.
Anyway, I need to learn my cash flow just a little bit more. But I think I'm doing well. But I definitely need to learn my cash flow just a little bit more. And so, Ann, where can people find you, and where can people find your fascinating work, and where can people find your book?
Well, the book is available wherever books are sold. So if that's Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Books A Million, Powell's, whatever bookstore is near you. And then as well as you can find me at brokemillennial.com. And you can always find me on Twitter at brokemillennial, Facebook, also brokemillennial, and Instagram is brokemillennialblog.
And we will have all of Aaron's information in the show notes. And go check out Aaron's book on Amazon. And please, 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 please leave a review. It helps people find the book. and go check out my books on Amazon, and please also leave a review, and it helps all the way around. And I want to know, did you self-publish that book, or is it traditionally published?
It is traditionally published with Tarcher Perigee, which is a Penguin Random House imprint.
Well, a huge shout-out goes out to them, and I've been interviewing a lot of traditional published authors lately, as of today, and so I think the self-publishing industry and the traditional publishing industry are getting into cahoots because there are so many good books out there, especially on finances.
Yeah, there definitely are. Plenty to choose from.
Yep. And before I let you go, I want to turn the mic on you to ask you questions that you want to ask me about anything.
Well, what would be your one piece of advice for a millennial trying to get their financial life together?
Ask for help if you need it. Ask for help. Don't feel ashamed in asking for help. And use the Pell Grant to your advantage. Use the U.S. education system to your advantage so you don't have to worry about paying off those loans. They give you 6 months, but as Aaron and I said, try and pay those loans immediately when you're in school, because that would help you. And they don't necessarily say we give you 6 months. I mean, when I originally did this and originally got on college loans, I called my school. They said, look, we don't do college loans. We form them out to Navient, which is a huge loan provider. And so I called Navient and said, look, this is my situation. What do we do? And I set up an account online, which you can easily do through these loan providers. And then I found the money, and I asked for help to get the money, and I paid my loans. So always, when you have school loans, don't necessarily call them. Just set up a loan on account online, and Navient, I know, has a mobile app, and I know has the loan facilitators now have mobile apps. Speaking of mobile apps, so why not use your phone to help you get out of debt too?
That's great. I love it.
Yeah, just be smart about those loans, and because student loans are the death of us. Student loans are the death of us, you guys. And I would like to thank Aaron, and you may see me pop up on Aaron's website eventually, because I want to help her from the disabled perspective. I want to help her understand what it's like to be a disabled person and money issues, as we talked about during today's interview. And again, Aaron, I would like to thank you for coming on Butterflies of Wisdom and sharing your knowledge all about money. And I hope you guys enjoyed another fabulous episode. This podcast was sponsored by Kitter, K-I-T-T-E-R, Go Kitter under Twitter. You compose the tweet, they put the trending hashtag with it. And so, let's say you're talking about finances, they can put a trending hashtag with it, or, so they compose a tweet, and then you compose a tweet, and then they put the trending hashtag with it, or they can compose the tweet for you if you're too lazy to, or to focus on your finances, to compose a tweet on Twitter. And as I said, thank you, Aaron, for coming on, and I wish you the best good luck with your book and your career and finances.
Well, thank you very much for having me.
Thank you.